I don't have a face. I mean not literally, but on my channel. And this makes it really hard for me to edit my videos. Like when there are some space in the video where I can find the proper visuals to fill in. So I end up just with some simple text on the spaces. And I want to change this. I want to create my own mini 2D avatar that can represent myself. And there are two ways I can create it. First is the raster images, made up of fixed grid of pixels, each with its own color value. And the second one is vector images, constructed from mathematical paths, lines, curves and shapes, and defined by points and formulas. With each type have some pros and cons to themselves. And I am bad at both type of art. But there is one thing I am good at. So I uploaded my picture and end up with this image as a starting point. Then I cleaned it up in Krita and separated each part into its own layer. After that, I added alternate versions of the eyes and mouth on different layers as well. Now the character design is complete. But it's lifeless right now. And I need to fix that. For that, I'll use Python. You will understand why I chose this programming language later. I was testing Tkinter in Python, and after a few trials, I found the app lagged heavily when the image size was huge. So I realized I needed another way to create a GUI application. After some research, I narrowed it down to the two GUI libraries, DearPy GUI and PySide6. DearPy GUI was great, GPU accelerated, and there are some really cool projects people have made with it. But during my testing, I ran into so many issues that I couldn't get the things working the way I wanted. So I moved on to the PySide6. Maybe I'll try DearPy GUI again later in the future. In PySide6, I made a window with 3 sections, each serving different purpose. In the bottom frame, which I'll say as gear frame, I added a resize combo box which will change the size of the top left frame, which I will say as image frame. I also added a lock image frame checkbox and changed transparency checkbox. Adding a transparency option and making a custom title bar for it and fixing bugs took a lot of effort. And at the end, does it even worth it? I think yes. Next, I added color change settings to adjust the image frame's background color. Then a lock window option to fix the window in place. But every time I restarted the app, everything reset. To fix that, I created a setting manager class to save the application state. So the next time I open the app, it loads all my previous settings. Now if you see at the top right, it's still empty. This frame will be our tree frame and will display our PSD layers. Back in the gear frame, I added an image settings section with a load PSD button to import a PSD file into the app. Then in the tree frame, I created a tree layout to list all the PSD layers. And after loading the PSD file, we can see the layers in the tree frame. For each layer, I added a checkbox to toggle the visibility of that layer and its children. And when adding checkboxes, I also make sure that if the layer contains v1, v2, etc. in its name, it will be considered as the radio group, which means only one version can be active at a time. Then I also added controls to change the image position and zoom. Now there was a problem when clicking checkboxes, as it is generating a new image every time from multiple layers, making the app laggy for some seconds. So I made a functionality to cache the image as PNG if it was the first time we are rendering the image, and use the pre-rendered image from cache if we have already rendered the image before. And as multiple combinations also result in same image, so to save disk space, I added a check to the MD5 hash for the image, but after testing it was still giving me multiple images for similar type of image. The reason is the image compression, causing two similar images having different byte streams, resulting in different hashes and then different files. So to tackle this problem, I used image hash, which will use different methods to generate the hash of the image. Next, I added a pre-render comps button that will generate cache images of all possible combinations on PSD layers. I also built a right-click tags menu to assign tags to layers. With the tags assigned, an input field lets me debug tag names and automatically enable layers matching those tags. But I don't want to change the image manually. Now if you are paying attention, I said that I will be using Python, and you will know the reason to use it later. And the reason is that Python's ecosystem have tons of libraries related to machine learning and artificial intelligence. And I want to use those libraries to update the avatar image in real time based on facial data and sound. In the gear frame, I added a camera section listing all available cameras and letting me connect to any one of them. I also added some handy features like mirror the camera and auto connect the last camera connected when we restart the app. Next, I added some UI for different ways I want to handle the eyes data and the mouth data. In the eyes section, we have random eyes blinking and options to set the random blinking duration. And then we also have eyes blinking based on MediaPipe. The MediaPipe is the library from Google used for building and deploying efficient real-time machine learning pipelines. For example, it provides 468 3D facial landmarks which we will be using in our application. I also added options to change blinking threshold and detect blinking separately, which only works perfectly in some rare cases, so I set it disabled by default. Next, for the mouse section, I added 3 options. The raw audio detection, which will detect any audio. The next is voice audio detection using WebRTC to detect the voice. And I also added option to change the aggression level. And then finally, MediaPipe again, which will check if the mouth is opened beyond a certain threshold to consider it open. Now these sections will send signals in the form of tags, which will then change the tree state, resulting in change in image. Now the avatar got some life, but to make it even livelier, we will add the effects. I won't go to the detail of how I implemented these effects, but I added 3 effects to this app. First is the opacity switch, that will change the opacity of the image after some time when there are no new tags being applied. Second is the continuous breathe effect, that will just move the image up and down. And the third is the zoom scale effect, that will zoom the image whenever a new tag is applied. For now, I think that's more than enough. I can now have a basic character animated in real time based on facial expression and voice. So that's it for now. You can go watch some another video while I mess with this program. Bye.